The Great Reset without Klaus Schwab, Russia and the Fourth Industrial Revolution. This is an article by Riley Wagaman. Despite cutting World Economic Forum WEF ties with Russia, Moscow has shown little interest in deviating from Klaus Schwab's Great Reset playbook. Will the growing divide between East and West lead to fundamentally different paths? On November 1st, 2021, Dmitry Medvedev, Deputy Chairman of Russia's Security Council, published an essay outlining 6 lessons from the COVID pandemic. He said COVID-19 has seriously accelerated the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Since May 2020, there have been an explosion in the quantity and quality of a variety of online services, be it grocery delivery, access to government services, virtual cultural events, bank payments, or distance education, wrote the former president and prime minister of Russia. The main problem facing the world now, according to Medvedev, was how to avoid a digital divide that would deprive people of vital opportunities. Medvedev also argued that COVID-19 had caused a global crisis of confidence, which could be addressed by giving the World Health Organization, WHO, the power to take important mobilization decisions in the interests of the entire global community in an emergency. Another important lesson from the pandemic was to make vaccines affordable and, when necessary, mandatory. Extolling the safety and effectiveness of COVID vaccines, the Russian politician blamed vaccine nationalism for complicating efforts to timely and cost-effectively inject the world's population. Medvedev's essay provided a remarkably candid overview of Moscow's trajectory from the start of the pandemic to the end of 2021. The fact that it read like a standard World Economic Forum press release, but to put it mildly, somewhat disturbing. What are Medvedev's 6 lessons still applicable to Russia today, 4 months after the start of Moscow's special military operation in Ukraine? Sanctions in response to the conflict in Ukraine forced the World Economic Forum to cut all official ties with Russian businesses and government institutions. The usual entourage of Russian oligarchs was called to Davos. Vladimir Putin's profile was removed from the WEF website. The Russian Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, established in partnership with the WEF in October 2021, announced in April that it was suspending its activities. For Russia, the divorce from the West engaged in Davos represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity for reflection, redefinition, and by all indications, a reset. But is Moscow taking steps to stop or reverse the Great Reset agenda that has swept the globe since the outbreak of COVID? Although it no longer bears Schwab's stamp, Russia's technocratic overhaul of the government-citizen social contract continues without significant interruption. From CBDCs to experimental genetic vaccines, Moscow is still marching towards the same cause played out in Davos by the WEF. Rebooting and rebuilding everything. The Fourth Industrial Revolution is now a new chapter in human development, driven by the increasing availability and interaction of a set of extraordinary technologies, building on 3 previous technological revolutions. The most innovative companies, governments, and civil society organizations combine new technologies into new products, services, and processes that reshape existing ways of delivering value. On June 2, 2022, Russia's top businessmen and top government officials gathered at the Forum for Solving Social Problems. The conference's mission, launched in 2020 under President Vladimir Putin's National Social Initiative, NSI, improving social services, had taken on new urgency as Russia charted a new course following Western sanctions and worsening geopolitical conditions. Participants included Maxim Oreshkin, assistant to the President of Russian Federation, Dmitry Peskov, Kremlin spokesman and special representative of President of the Russian Federation for Digital and Technological Development, Alexei Repik, founder of the Russian pharmaceutical company R-Pharm, and Herman Gref, CEO of Sberbank, Russia's largest bank. And speaking during the forum's plenary session, entitled New Era, New Challenges, people at the center, Greff argued that technology should be harnessed to make Russian enterprises and institutions more customer-centric. To become a customer-centric company, you have to rebuild everything, internal processes and technologies, because without technology it's impossible for a state, a social organization, or a commercial company to be customer-centric. Technology is the key to this world. Is it possible for the social sector to move in this direction? It's not only possible but also necessary. With Russia at a socioeconomic crossroads, the head of Sberbank called for a complete redesign of processes in order to reshape the customer journey. But what lies behind Greff's impenetrable corporate word salad? What kind of customer path does he have in mind for the Russians? To answer these questions, we must first briefly review the life story of the visionary banker. Hermann Greff, or Graf in the language of his ancestors, was born February 8, 1964 to German parents who were displaced to the USSR of Kazakhstan during World War II. He began working in the St. Petersburg government after graduating from law school in 1990. And I've been to St. Petersburg in, when was it? Beginning of September 1999 on an environmental seminar for 3 days. It's the Venice of the North. Now, it's a beautiful city. Now, made by Peter the Great, of course. Now, and he graduated from law school in 1990. By the end of the decade, was on the board of several high-profile companies, including state airline Aeroflot and energy giant Gazprom. Greff then followed Vladimir Putin to Moscow, where he was appointed Minister of Economic Development and Trade in 2000. And 7 years later, he was handed the reins of Sberbank, which is majority owned by the government. Sitting atop Russia's largest and most influential bank, and controlling nearly a third of the country's total banking assets, Greff's international presence was snowballed. In 2009, he became a member of the World Economic Forum's International Business Council, and 2 years later, he was elected to the WEF Board of Directors. His profile, unlike Vladimir Putin, is still visible on the WEF website. In 2012, the CEO of Sberbank moderated a discussion at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum entitled Way Out from the Management Dead End: Wisdom of the Crowd or the Authoritarian Genius. Weighing out of the managerial impasse, wisdom of the crowd or autocratic genius. The panelists showed some wariness about authoritarian management practices, which prompted Greff to liven up the discussion. He said, "You're saying terrible things," the CEO of Sberbank playfully scolded them. You propose a real transfer of power into the hands of the population. If every individual can participate directly in management, then what are we managing? Invoking Confucius and the mysticism of the Cabal, he reminded his audience of the millennia-old tradition of shielding truth from the easily excitable masses. People don't want to be manipulated when they have knowledge. What does it mean to remove the veil from the eyes of millions of people and make them self-sufficient? How do you manage them? Any mass management involves an element of manipulation, Greff concludes. His comments were treated as scandalous by the Russian press, but the banker insisted that his comments were only intended to stimulate debate, telling an interviewer that he laughed heartily when he learned that so many people had been offended. The incident was soon forgotten, and a year later, in 2013, Greff became a member of the international board of JPM Morgan Chase, replacing Anatoly Chubais, the architect of post-Soviet privatizations in Russia. In the same year, the CEO of Sberbank wrote the foreword to the report Scenarios for the Russian Federation, which was published by the World Economic Forum. According to Greff, the document attempted to take a structural view of the main uncertainties, risks, and challenges, and development opportunities for the Russian Federation in the near future. Klaus Schwab, founder and chairman of WEF, expressed hope that the report would lay the groundwork for more productive discussions among all stakeholders in the Russian economy. The exhibition was just one of many fruitful collaborations between Schwab and Greff. In 2016, the CEO of Sberbank had the honor of writing the foreword to the Russian edition of Schwab's book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution. The Fourth Industrial Revolution will have a dramatic impact on the entire city and world economy. And if we want to be among its leaders, we need to understand what direction technological development will take in the coming years and what breakthrough innovations await us in the future. Klaus Schwab, who wrote the book The Fourth Industrial Revolution, is the chairman of the World Economic Forum, WEF, in Davos, and is therefore in a unique position to summarize the experience and views of the world's leading experts in economics and technology. To Greff's credit, he practiced what he preached. In December 2017, article marking his 10th year as head of Sberbank, Vedomosti, the Russian equivalent Wall Street Journal, highlighted Greff's obsession with technological development to the point that the bank's senior management, she shrugged to follow him. I have a typical perfectionist profile. Perfectionism is a mental illness, and you try to do everything as perfectly as possible all the time, even though it's not optimal and it's not necessary, Greff admits. It will take several more years of hard work and the arrival of COVID-19 before Sberbank CEO can realize his vision of the ideal customer journey. As Schwab prophetically stated in the early months of 2020, the pandemic represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity to think, redefine, and reset our world. Greff took this opportunity to reset. On September 24, 2020, Sberbank announced that it is no longer a simple financial institution but a whole universe of services for human life and business. The bank said it would henceforth be known as Sber, a new brand for our new role in people's lives, he says. The Sber umbrella will cover all aspects of life. Russians will now have access to services such as Sber Markets, Sber Health, Sber Games, Sber Autos, Sber Food, Sber Sound, and the key to unlocking them all, Sber ID. An open-end published by TASS described the Sber future that awaited the Russians. Xenia goes to work using City Drive car sharing, orders lunch using Delivery Club, calls a taxi at 17:59, reads Gazeta Russia on the way home, and in the evening watches a movie on Oko, a Russian service streaming, and for dinner eats a meal cooked from the products delivered by Sber Market. It does all this through a single Sber ID login system. This is what the digital ecosystem looks like, the last stage of Sber's development. In the future, this ecosystem will be the basis for integrating the interests of people, businesses, and the state as a whole. For the average user, Sber ID provides access to a large number of non-banking services in this ecosystem that simplifying shopping, healthcare, entertainment, job search, that make life more convenient in general. Participation in Sberbank's digital universe is not mandatory, at least not yet. However, Greff already exerts an inescapable influence in Russia. Quietly and methodically, the leading student in the Fourth Industrial Revolution in Russia has introduced a series of services from which it's practically impossible to opt out. There is only one customer path, and Greff has designed it so it is not optional sooner or later. The CEO of Sberbank has created a parallel world in which he is the president himself. Tsargrad, a leading conservative broadcaster in Russia, complained in January 2021. Digital currencies. By the 2030s, versions of distributed ledger or blockchain technologies may well change everything from electronic financial transactions to the way we vote to the way we tell where goods are produced. Klaus Schwab, Reshaping the Future in Fourth Industrial Revolution. The introduction of the digital ruble is on track and ahead of schedule, according to the first deputy governor of the Bank of Russia, Olga Skorobogatova, speaking at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum 2022. It will be possible to start testing the Central Bank of Russia digital currency, CBDC, this year, 2023, a year earlier than planned, she said at the conference. Russia should aim to be among the world's top 3 innovators in payments and finance, Skorobogatova said, adding that the Bank of Russia is always working on implementing smart contracts for its current central digital currency. The Bank of Russia presented its plans to develop the digital ruble October 2020, and a prototype was completed a year later. On February 15, 2022, the Bank of Russia announced that two of the commercial banks participating in the pilot program successfully carried out financial transactions using the new platform. Customers are only open digital wallets on the digital ruble platform through a mobile app, but also exchanged non-cash rubles from their accounts for digital ones and then transferred digital rubles to each other, the Bank of Russia said. Proponents of Russia's CBDC argue it will reduce costs and create opportunities for the development of innovative products and services. The introduction of centralized digital currency also comes with disadvantages. In December 2021, Vedomosti reported that the digital ruble would allow Sberbank and other Russian financial institutions to, quote, monitor citizens' spending of funds, end quote. So that's exactly what the globalists want, don't they? I guess maybe this proves that Russia is playing into the globalist plan for their agenda. Now, going back to this, blockchain consultant and cryptocurrency researcher Denis Smirnov told the newspaper that for ordinary Russians, the introduction of the digital ruble is the realization of the most terrible scenarios described by science fiction writer in dystopias. According to the expert Smirnov, with the advent of the digital ruble, absolute transparency will prevail in the field of personal finance, which means that the human right to privacy will be attacked. And speaking at Cyber Polygon 2021, which was co-organized that year by the World Economic Forum and Sberbank, Bank of Russia Deputy Governor Alexei Zabotkin extolled the potential of the digital ruble. Russia's CBDC will allow for better traceability of payments and money flows, as well as exploring the possibility of setting conditions for permanent terms of use of a particular currency, he said. For example, parents could give their children digital rubles programmed to prevent them from buying junk food. The central bank official explained this would be a useful functionality for a customer, and of course you can find hundreds of other similar use cases, he said. Russians wary of the Bank of Russia centralized programmable currency can turn to the private sector for an alternative. In March 2022, the Central Bank of Russia granted Sberbank a license to issue and exchange digital financial assets using its own platform. Sberbank is expected to conduct its first digital asset transaction by mid-July. Deputy Chairman of Board of Sberbank, Anatoly Popov, told TASS, the bank's central blockchain will allow companies to issue their own digital assets and conduct transactions using digital currencies developed on the platform. Sberbank has been tight-lipped about the first digital asset it will develop. However, in late 2020, Gref revealed that his bank is working with JP Morgan to create Svercoin, the cryptocurrency said to be a stablecoin, has yet to launch, and due to sanctions, it's unclear if JP Morgan will still be involved in the project. The CEO of Sberbank has long been a supporter of digital currency. A report from December 2013 claimed that Graf, then a newly minted member of the International Board of JP Morgan Chase, was investigating Sberbank entry into the cryptocurrency market. In the same month, JP Morgan Chase announced that it was creating its own cryptocurrency using technology that the US bank first patented in 1999. However, avoiding the digital ruble will not protect Russians from unprecedented surveillance by the Bank of Russia. Starting in January 2022, the central bank began requiring Russia's commercial banks to disclose information about all P2P, that's person-to-person, transactions, including the personal data of senders and recipients of funds. As well as the rise of secure distributed ledgers such as blockchain, innovations to IoT architecture are encouraging opportunities to find this balance in new ways. For example, Sensity Systems, a Verizon company, has partnered with Genetec to design smart city security systems that will manage both security and protection concerns of the private life. Klaus Schwab. Now, on June 20th, 2022, the Russian newspaper Kommersant reported that the Ministry of Emergency Situations, EMERCOM, plan to deploy a safe city system in regions bordering Ukraine, the Krasnodar region, Crimea, Sevastopol, and the Voronezh-Belgorod regions. A source told the newspaper that the implementation of the high-tech surveillance network had become a task of extreme urgency due to increasing security threats arising from the special operation in Ukraine. Russia's Safe City program, created in December 2014, uses organizational, informational, analytical, predictive, and other methodological, technical, and technological solutions to ensure the safety and sustainable development of cities. As Emercom explains on its website, Safe City is best known for its law enforcement block. Surveillance cameras recording violations of public order and traffic rules are installed and operated in almost all participating areas. However, the purpose of the project is not so much to react to incidents as to prevent them, to find out that there is a problem before it happens. The federal program has been introduced throughout the country, including the most remote regions of Russia. In Yamal, northwest Siberia, 1,000 video surveillance cameras will be installed this year as part of the Safe City program. Tatarstan's network of 60,000 Safe City surveillance cameras recently received a software upgrade that makes it possible to identify stray dogs, according to a local media report in April 2022. Murmansk announced the same month that it would put 1,400 cameras into operation as part of its transition in a safe city. Regional authorities said the monitoring system will include software capable of identifying persons, suspicious objects, and intruders. A June 2021 report found that Russia ranks second globally in terms of increasing the number of surveillance cameras. Chinese manufacturers have been the biggest beneficiaries of Russian growing demand for surveillance equipment, according to Kommersant. Moscow has undergone the most radical transformation among Russia's safe cities. More than 213,000 CCTV cameras monitor the Russian capital, Moscow, and even private security systems are now connected to the city's central surveillance network. In May 2020, Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin ordered nightclubs to connect their cameras to a single monitoring center equipped with sophisticated facial recognition software. Similar directives were issued fall 2021 when the mayor's office required malls to connect their cameras to the central system so city officials could monitor compliance with mask rules. Around the same time, Moscow launched FacePay, a facial recognition payment system that has been installed in more than 240 metro stations across the capital. In September 2021, Moscow's Ministry of Education and Science presented plans to introduce facial recognition systems in the city's schools as well. Despite protests from parents, these new biometric security systems began appearing in schools in January 2022. Like WEF, Sobyanin saw the COVID pandemic as an opportunity to demonstrate his administrative skills. In February 2020, the mayor announced that compliance with quarantine measures in Moscow would be monitored using the city's facial recognition system with the help of Sberbank. On February 27, 2020, Gref revealed that his bank was working on facial recognition systems tailored to help Russia deal with COVID. He said, "We're also developing mask face recognition technology. We tried to understand what our colleagues in China are doing. We did the same. We tried to look for our own solutions," he said. In May 2020, with most of Russia still under lockdown, Gref outlined plans to allow schools and universities to reopen. A device developed by Sberbank would use facial recognition and temperature measurement to identify potential carriers of the virus. Sberbank started developing biometric identification and payment systems long before COVID pandemic. In 2015, the bank launched Ladoshki, Little Palms, a cashless payment system for school meals where instead of cards and smartphones, biometric data was used as an identifier. To pay for the meal, the student placed their hand on the scanner of a special machine, selects a dish from menu, and the money is automatically debited from the account linked to the biometrics. The move to biometric identification is not just limited to Moscow students. Regions were already testing biometrics IDs in 2019, and the Ministry of Education wants facial recognition system in all schools by 2024. In the fall of 21, Samara opened a new school where the safety and comfort of children come first. The child holds a magnetic key to the door to enter the school premises. Then in the hall, he goes through a turnstile which recognizes him. The same facial recognition system measures the temperature of each visitor and allows them to enter only if their temperature is normal. If the child's temperature is elevated, the parents will be called and asked to take the child home. A mechanism is being developed that will allow parents to monitor their children during the day and observe their movements. Sooner or later, Russians of all ages will have to consent to some form of biometric identification. Integrated biometrics into everyday life is part of Russian government's vision to create smart cities, a national initiation that predates but has been significantly accelerated by COVID pandemic. Spearheaded by the Ministry of Construction and Housing, Russia's Smart City program aims to create an effective urban management system that will create safe and comfortable living conditions for citizens. Sobyanin's Smart City 2030 plan for Moscow is an extreme example of what this initiative hopes to achieve. The ambitious redesign of the Russian capital is already being carried out by the city IT department. Among other benefits, Moscow residents will be issued genetic passports that can be used to administer gene therapies, wearable and implanted medical digital devices to collect information about a person's lifestyle and calculate payments to health insurance companies. And by the end of the decade, Russia's capital will leverage digital technologies to ensure sustainable development of Muscovites' quality of life, according to the project's official website. Engineering different types of smart city cell factories could also enable us to tackle emergency infectious diseases, for example, by providing vaccines and therapeutic antibodies faster. In April 2021, Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered his government to take drastic measures to ensure the country was prepared for another health crisis similar to the coronavirus. In the event of an infection as dangerous as coronavirus, or perhaps even more, God forbid, Russia must be ready within 4 days, precisely within 4 days, to develop its own testing systems and in the shortest possible time to create an effective domestic vaccine to start its mass production, Putin said. The rapid development of tests and vaccines will form part of a strong and reliable health and biosecurity shield. The sanitary shield and networked laboratories and border checkpoints tasked with ensuring Russia's biosecurity is slated to be fully operational by 2030, again the same date as the WEF agenda. Although years away from completion, the rapid response system was put into operation after the monkeypox outbreak in May 2022, and in less than 3 weeks, Rospotrebnadzor, Russia's human welfare agency, presented a PCR test to detect the new disease. The test was created to assist the World Health Organization in the development of advanced rapid diagnostic methods, according to our ROSP's Vector Institute. By the end of May, Vector had almost registered a smallpox vaccine, a genetic composition that forms stable immunity and at the same time has a high safety profile. It's not clear whether the drug was created in response to the new epidemiological threat or was developed in advance in anticipation of the scenario. Under Health Shield, the rapid development of new vaccines will use Sputnik V genetic adenovirus-based platform as a model. Now, the rapid development and availability of the drug can be attributed to Gamaleya's partnership with Sberbank and Russian Direct Investment Fund, Russia's Sovereign Wealth Fund, and the vaccine main financer. Now, in May 2020, Sberbank registered a subsidiary company, Immunotechnologies LLC, which was created specifically as a project office to support the production of vaccines against the new coronavirus. The CEO of Sberbank set the example. In December 2020, Gref revealed that he was one of the first to be injected with Sputnik V vaccine. He later claimed that the vaccine likely saved his life during a business trip. Now, while Sver put forward the project, RDIF ensures the success of Sputnik international markets. Dimitri's talent was spotted at an early age. The RDIF CEO Kirill Dmitriev, one of World Economic Forum's young global leaders, class of 2009, came up with the name Sputnik V. The Soros Foundation awarded him a scholarship to study in the US, where he attended Stanford University and Harvard Business School, and after graduation he worked for Goldman Sachs and McKinsey and Company before taking the reins of RDIF in 2011. As you can see, this shows, it's a very long thing. I'm not going to go through this. It's very detailed. In the eyes of the Russian government, Sputnik V represents a resound victory for next generation genetic technologies. But this is a very long thing. I'm not going to go into it. There's a lot more. The thing is that it seems that the Russians are hand in hand working with the WEF. The argument that Moscow is reluctantly mirroring the West as part of a technocrat arms race fueled by biological threats raises a whole host of questions. Can Russia responsibly exploit technologies that have been abused and misused by Western governments? They're doing the same thing, aren't they? Please leave your comments about this, and thank you for your support. I've translated this for you from a Greek article. Thank you. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.